right, political panel on this and more. NewsNation political contributor Denise Gitsham is with us. Democratic strategist Nicole Brenner-Schmitz is as well. What's going on here, Denise, with the Republicans in Indiana? They, like I said, I thought they were kind of against this. Now they're for it, maybe, or letting it play out. What's going on?
Feels like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and either President Trump is either the rock or the hard place, and the will of the people is on the other side of it. Look, as a Republican, I want nothing more than to hold and expand Republican wins in the House, but even I'm not willing to do that at any cost. I don't want to settle for a pyrrhic victory where winning this battle ultimately destroys Americans' faith in our leaders and principles. And 53% of Indiana registered voters oppose redistricting right now. Notably, 59% of independents who ultimately decide who wins that state.
Well, we talk to people, Nicole, about this all the time, and almost all of them will say they hate this idea of redistricting or drawing these maps, gerrymandering in general, and from both parties. But there's a practical side of this as well. And for Democrats, if there's some momentum, from this year's elections, do you now fear some of that will be lost or at least limited by some of these redistricting decisions if they go forward in a place like Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the redistricting plan has not gone the way that this administration thought. I mean, you look at Utah, you look at some other states, some things where they thought they were going to have some easier victories. And so they're putting a lot more pressure on these Republicans in Indiana. But look at these maps. I mean, this is what Americans hate and what Denise was just saying. I mean, Indianapolis is drawn down so that they're lumped in with people way down in the southern part of Indiana. I mean, the reality is there are 2 Democratic seats in the state of Indiana. Both of these seats have been democratically held for years.
Yeah.
That is representative of the people who live in those districts. So going forward with this map, I think is going to it's going to anger a Democratic base, but I think it's going to annoy Americans across the board and the people of Indiana in particular.
Those pictures from Indianapolis, by the way, are live. Indiana State House. Exciting stuff, right, to watch it happen? Now, Denise, what would you say about the Marjorie Taylor Greene interview last night? Did you watch it on 60 Minutes? So this is, kind of, it's been an interesting back and forth between her and President Trump. Obviously, she's leaving, but she did, the idea the president comes out and says she's a traitor. She'd been, his biggest supporter, one of his biggest supporter. Now she says her family's getting death threats. What's your whole kind of perspective on this MTG versus Trump situation?
Well, I have a lot of sympathy for her. I feel, even though I really dislike the way she politics when she was forced, she's a lot of the reason we are where we are today, and I think she's tried to own that. It might be a little too late. But as someone who's had 2 attempted assassinations on his own life, I would expect the president to be a little more understanding of Marjorie Taylor Greene's position, especially since he had Secret Service agents protecting him, and she has nobody. Neither does her family. So I feel like comments like his have added fuel to the fire. And this is in the context of a 10-fold spike in violent threats against federal lawmakers since 2015. And it's not just on one side, y'all. This is something that if Nicole and I can't agree that this is a problem on both sides of the aisle, then one of us is lying. Because this is something that is a huge issue on the left, at least according to polls, more so than on the right, but it's just as bad no matter where you look, where it comes from. So this all needs to stop, and we have to look to our leaders we have to impress on them that it's important to us as Americans that we treat each other with respect. And I don't know if that's falling on deaf ears or if anyone cares, but the more of us who chime in and speak like that, the more I think it'll make a difference.
Yeah, okay, and as you respond to that, Nicole, the other a female member of the Congress who's in the news today on the Democratic side that the president's taken plenty of shots at in recent months is Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman from Texas. Now she's running for Senate. So you can pick up on what Denise is talking about, but also give us a thought on the chances someone like Jasmine Crockett might have in a Senate race in Texas.
I do think that there is rhetoric that is problematic on both sides of the aisle, but I think Donald Trump has the biggest pulpit and the most vile rhetoric of all, and it is a real problem. Marjorie Taylor Greene does not deserve what is happening here, but she has been a part of that rhetoric for a lot of years. I'm glad that she's realizing it. It's interesting to watch this maybe beginning of the fracturing. I mean, I thought one of the most interesting parts of the interview was her saying, hey, what I'm saying out loud right now is what a lot of Republicans say behind the scenes and when they're not in front of a microphone.
Yeah,
But
she
we're
did say
starting
that. Yep.
more of them pipe up. We're hearing rumors. Will Stefanik and Mace perhaps also resign early in attempts for their gubernatorial races? And are they going to start fighting? Stefanik's arguing with the leader of the House, Mike Johnson. Does that
Right.
expand? So I think we're
What
starting to
about
see
Jasmine Crockett in Texas?
I mean, I guess it's an exciting development for the Democrats to continue to try to put the Texas Senate race on the map. We're going to have to see what kind of money does she raise? What kind of grassroots operation does she have? Texas is a big state. Democrats have been going after this for a lot of years
Yes,
now.
for years and years.
On a momentum year where our presidential is not at the top of the ticket does feel like a better chance of a year. But look, Democrats are really focused on flipping that House and trying to make some momentum in the Senate. But remember, we got 36 gov races this year, too. So
All right.
lots of.
I say run, baby, run. Get in there, Jasmine.
Get in
She is
there. Get after it.
on given to Republicans.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's how you would see it. I had a feeling. Thank you, Denise. Good to see you, Nicole.